It's Iberia long-haul business today on an Airbus A350. Despite 98 years of history, Iberia has long been something of an underdog in Europe. Recently they invested in new planes and cabins, trying to reclaim a spot in the Premier League. But opinions remain to be mixed. Some cheer the new business cabin, others grumble that service still remains sketchy. Let's find out together what Iberia long-haul business experience is like today on this journey across the Atlantic from Mexico City to Madrid. I'm flying today from Mexico's Benito Juarez airport. Mexico City, or Ciudad de Mexico in Spanish, is an amazing megacity. The road to the airport is an adventure by itself, giving you a good look at different sides of this vibrant place. Iberia operates from a huge, confusing and desperately outdated Terminal 1. The taxi drop-off looks more like the loading dock of a shopping mall. If it's your first time here, you might genuinely wonder whether the driver took you to the wrong place. Once inside, I can't help laughing at the main info display. About 80% of the screen is dedicated to advertising, and the tiny corner that's left shows the actual flights. I don't mind ads at all, but making money definitely takes priority here over helping passengers. Iberia's check-in area is huge and almost completely empty. There is not much to do in this airport, so I try to arrive as close to departure as possible, which means almost everyone else has already checked in. Iberia has two dedicated business class counters, which at this point don't really matter because there is no one around, but I still use them. Everything is smooth and I have my boarding passes and baggage checked in no time. I definitely want to check out the lounge, even though I know that Benito Juarez lounges are famously unimpressive. I asked the check-in agent and he gave me a vague "just look for Iberia" sign, which is exactly what I did for the next 30 minutes. In retrospect, I realized that this was not a direction but a scavenger hunt clue. There are many different lounges here, none of them associated with an airline or alliance, they are all independently operated. With the vague look for the Iberia instruction I got, navigating this maze becomes a bit of a mystery. I walk into one lounge, definitely not Iberia's, they send me to another and my scavenger hunt goes on and on. By the end of it, I have expected to finally see a dragon guarding the entrance of the real Iberia lounge. As big as the check-in halls are in Benito Juarez Airport, the departure areas are the complete opposite, smaller, cramped, and with the kind of aesthetics of a provincial bus station rather than one of the largest airports in the world. The entire space feels like a maze of narrow, low-ceiling corridors with constant construction and passengers queuing for flights in every direction. There are just few windows around, and the whole place feels like a network of underground tunnels from some post-apocalyptic movie. There are only a few packed cafes and a handful of shops, most of them selling cliché souvenirs like these giant sombreros, and even those I suspect will have a small tag inside "Made in China." I honestly can't imagine who's buying those or where they are planning to wear them. Mexico really deserves a better airport, and Istanbul airport in Turkey could be a great example that an emerging economy could still have a truly best-in-class airport. After running back and forth, I realize it's too late for the lounge anyway and head to the gate. It's mega crowded. It would be suitable for boarding a small turboprop, not a wide body. Finally, on top of everything, we also get stuck in the hot air bridge trying to make the final meters to the aircraft. It's an Airbus A350-900 today with 31 business class seats. It features Iberia's top-of-the-range Next Business product, a new standard that is supposed to bring Iberia to the next level. Let's see together how this worked out. First impressions can be misleading, but this looks a little underwhelming for something called Next. More like I've seen this before and it was fine. Iberia is using the Recaro CL6270 seat, the same model found on Air China and Polish lot, which is not exactly the aviation equivalent of Ferrari. It's a perfectly acceptable seat, but by today's standards it feels a little average. It's a fully lie-flat seat with decent space, but that's expected nowadays. What really matters is the look and feel, and this is where Iberia's Next somehow still didn't manage to get there. The materials don't have that premium touch. The upholstery looks a bit cheap and already wrinkled, the plastics are rough, some surfaces have a very basic leatherette finish, and the overall grey color palette feels out of place with Iberia's bright red and yellow branding. Everything is so grey, I wondered for a moment if Iberia outsourced the design to Lufthansa. It's like painting a flamenco dancer in a grayscale. Technically correct, but where is the passion? I don't want to overdo it though. It's a nice new cabin and by far not bad, just somehow uninspiring. The seat gets a kind of semi-adjustable headrest, you can move it up or down, but you can't bend it to get any lateral support for your head, so it's great if your head only moves vertically, less so if you're an actual human. Small thing, but it's a bit disappointing. The seat also has those smart little side flaps that can serve as armrests or fold away in a lie-flat mode to give you a bit more space. There is a full bedding set already waiting at the seat. The first pack includes a pillow and a blanket. They look perfectly fine and the materials feel nice to touch. I can't quite figure out what they are made of, but they don't feel artificial. I really appreciate that the pillow is actually large, almost regular size. I can't stand those tiny airline pillows that look like they belong in a dollhouse rather than on a bed. The second item takes a moment to identify. At first it looks like some kind of cushion roll, but then I realize it's actually a mini mattress. I really like this because they make a big difference for comfort on lie-flat seats. Yet still surprisingly few airlines offer them, even though it seems like such a simple and inexpensive thing to provide. Overall, the bedding looks very good. The only downside is that there is a lot of it, and it takes up a lot of space. Personally, I would prefer if the crew brought it later when I actually need it. Jumping ahead, the bedding performed really well. The seat has good width and length in lie-flat mode. It still feels like it's at a slight angle rather than perfectly flat, but honestly it didn't bother me much. What is a bit more noticeable are the rough edges between the moving seat parts. You can definitely feel them, and the headrest isn't designed particularly well, so instead of acting as a cushion, it feels more like a bump. But the mattress and the large pillow fix most of that, and in the end I have to say the seat did a very good job in ensuring a comfortable sleep. The key is definitely the mattress. Without it I would be rolling around much more, so if you're flying Iberia, don't skip it, it really makes a difference. Overall, this Iberia's mini suite from Recaro offers a decent amount of space, but not much in the way of storage, especially if you want to keep a few items within the reach. The bedding alone forced me to play a game of find any empty corner, and beyond that, there isn't much room for personal items close to the seat. On the bright side, all the power options are here. Universal outlet plus USB Type-A and USB Type-C, conveniently placed right in front of you, which is not always the case. The seat controls are simple and functional, nothing to decipher or guess. The remote for the entertainment system is also very minimalistic, with just a touchpad and a few buttons. The touchpad works well, but what I really miss is a mini screen. You can't quickly check the time or the flight map without interrupting whatever's on the main screen. It's a small thing, but it makes a difference. And speaking of small things, despite this cabin being less than 2 years old, the remote cable is already damaged. Not a huge problem, but again one of those details that make the whole Next product feel a bit Nextish, but not quite next level. I expect the headphones and the amenity bag to be in the personal storage compartment, and indeed they are. The problem is that the compartment itself is so small, I'm not even sure what else beyond the phone could possibly fit in there. Maybe a boarding pass, certainly not anything meaningful. What you can't miss, however, is the bright red color. It's so intense, it feels like there is a small fire behind that little door. I actually wish more of that Iberia red and yellow energy made it into the rest of the cabin instead of all the dull grays. The amenity box and headphones look very basic at first glance, nothing that screams flagship next product, but I will take a closer look later. And for now, it's time to focus on making my choices for the meal service. Iberia's catering is handled by Turkish Do & Co, which in my opinion is the absolute gold standard of airline catering. Eating in Turkish Airlines business class, a signature customer of Do & Co, feels almost like dining in a high-end restaurant, so naturally I'm very curious to see what they got for Iberia. There are two options for starters, roasted chicken on hummus and a vegetarian choice of quinoa with vegetables. The main courses offer three choices: veal rib stew, grilled salmon and ricotta ravioli. And for the dessert I can choose from passion fruit mousse with sponge cake, ice cream and a selection of cheeses. It's solid and the dishes sound promising, but at least on paper it feels a bit conservative for Do & Co. Before early morning landing we will have a second service with a choice of an omelette or pancakes. What's surprising is how little of this menu feels Spanish. The menu reads like it could belong to any European airline. Ravioli, salmon, really? This could just as easily be on ITA Airways or SAS. Por favor, few tapas wouldn't hurt. Even a lonely slice of jamon would help to reassure me I'm actually on Iberia. It gets more interesting in the bar menu though. Johnny Walker Blue Label and the Singleton Spice Grove Single Malt are genuinely premium picks, both around €150 a bottle, yet here they are, quietly listed without any fanfare. You won't find these even on Emirates or Qatar, and those airlines usually love to brag about every drop they serve. The same goes for Zacapa Centenario Ram, which is far from your usual Inflight pour. All of this makes me even more curious about the wine list. Quite naturally, there is cava instead of champagne. That makes perfect sense for Spanish airline. The rest of the wines also stay firmly within Spain. While not as extravagant as the whiskies, Iberia's wine selection is still a step above what you can find on peers like Air France or Lufthansa. That Ribera del Duero bottle sells for around €50 compared to the usual €10-15 range most airlines pour. But I'm a long-time Rioja loyalist, so my eyes immediately go to the 2018 Roland Galareta Rioja. Even though it's not the priciest on the list, it still sounds like the best choice to me. And of course no Spanish wine list would be complete without dessert wine. Here we get a choice of Jerez and Muscatel. Not exactly my cup of tea, but undeniably to the point. While the food menu feels solid but a bit generic and international, the wine list is a pleasant surprise and unmistakably Spanish. Having finished exploring the menu, I also take a look at the table. It's a bifold design which is actually great. It gives you a lot of flexibility in how you use it and frees up more space in the seat. A smart, simple feature that makes a surprisingly big difference. There is still some time before the service starts, so I can finish my cabin and amenities check. Meanwhile, we are served the pre-flight drink and I pause my explorations. There is a little twist to usual airlines routines. Rather than customary champagne, today we are served Spanish cava, which makes all the sense. Cheers to a good flight and looking forward to my today's experience with Iberia. Headphones. Well, nothing to write home about. A typical unbranded airline model that technically works but fits oddly on the ears and offers only modest noise cancellation. They also come with the classic 2-pin airline plug, probably to discourage people from taking them home, but it also means you can't use your own headset unless you carry an adapter. They do the job, but that's as far as the praise goes. And just when I thought the headphones had already set the bar low, the amenity kit arrives and says, "Hold my beer." It's so basic I genuinely wondered why they bothered putting it on the seat. From the outside it already looks underwhelming, despite being designed by Teresa Helbig, a well-known Catalan designer. Supposedly the kit is full of symbolism, inspired by Iberia uniforms, made from recycled materials and representing a sustainable Spanish aesthetic. But in reality, it feels cheap and plasticky and definitely doesn't add any sense of premiumness to the experience. Inside, I get a sleeping mask and socks, a very forgettable toothbrush and a single tube of hand cream from Uvas Frescas, a small Spanish eco-brand which name literally means fresh grapes. I understand and appreciate the eco-friendly concept behind it, but the execution just doesn't land. If Iberia truly wanted to make a sustainability statement, they could have skipped the kit entirely rather than offering something that feels this basic and cheap. The only thing left to explore is the in-flight entertainment system. In this next cabin, Iberia uses 18.5-inch screens. They are not the biggest in the industry. These days you can find 20-inch and even larger screens, but they are still more than respectable and the 4K resolution really shows. The picture is sharp, bright and genuinely pleasant to watch. The screen is also extremely responsive to touch and the interface is simple and intuitive. The content library, however, is fine. Not great, not terrible, just okay. The selection is wide enough that you'll definitely find something to watch, but most of the movies are from 2 or 3 years ago or even older. Nothing that feels particularly fresh or recent. So if you were hoping to catch that one film you missed in the cinema last month, well, no luck here. It's the kind of selection where you think, oh great, I remember wanting to watch this before the COVID. I'm done with all the cabin explorations just in time for departure. Our A350 gets pushed back and I'm ready for some plane spotting, hoping to catch something rare or exotic from Latin American airlines that you don't usually see in Europe. But somehow all I can spot is a parade of Aeromexico and Delta, not exactly the exotic wildlife I was hoping for. Mexico City Benito Juarez Airport is one of the largest in Latin America, usually trading places in top 3 with Bogota and São Paulo. And yet, for an airport of this scale, it's surprisingly run down. Basic terminal buildings, worn out infrastructure, and taxiways sometimes so bumpy they are only a few cracks away from becoming actual potholes. This megacity truly deserves a better airport. With its location, it could easily be a major transit hub for Latin America for flights from Europe, US and Canada. Hopefully it will be like this one day, but not today, and not for the next year's Football World Cup either. Engines whiz and we are in the air in less than a minute. I'm once again amazed by the view when flying out of Mexico City. It's only from above that you can truly grasp the scale of this megapolis, with more than 20 million people living there and with blocks of houses stretched out in every direction till the horizon. Then those dense neighborhoods eventually fade into something that almost looks like paddy fields in Southeast Asia. For a moment you wonder if the plane made a secret detour to Vietnam, but no, it's just that Mexico being full of surprises. The area around the city used to be a lake, most of which was drained during the 20th century, but some wetlands still remained right next to the urban edge. From above they create this unusual, almost Asian-looking landscape during takeoff. My A2D seat gives me a fantastic view of those chunky Rolls-Royce Trent engines. If you're into aviation, you would never mistake their sound for any other wide-body engine. Soft and quiet, it's almost soothing rather than disruptive. For me, the A350 is definitely the quietest ride among today's long-haul fleets, largely thanks to these Rolls-Royce powerhouses. We are climbing out over the high-altitude plateau surrounding Mexico City and then flying along the Gulf of Mexico coast. The weather is perfect and the views just keep getting better. I can't remember the last time I saw water this intensely blue from the sky. The sky and the Gulf seem to be competing for the deepest, richest shades of blue, while the engines are clearly vying for an Oscar in the Best Sound Effects category. I even caught myself thinking that if we had to make an emergency landing at some small coastal airport and wait for a few days for the plane to be fixed, I probably wouldn't mind too much. Even without the in-flight entertainment system, you can spend hours just staring out of the window. That's the big advantage of the daytime transatlantic flights. They might not be as convenient as overnights, but the views more than make up for it. Honestly, I would easily rank this flight among my top 3 all-time for scenery. A wet towel signals that food is coming very soon. It also gives a further outlook on Iberia's attention to detail. It's half dry and not really hot. Technically, they are ticking the service box, but sending a really mixed message on service quality in reality. I'm starting with a glass of Rioja accompanied by a few slices of cheese and a pack of breadsticks as an appetizer. Not bad at all, and I really appreciate having a proper wine glass, unlike Air France, which serves wine in the same glasses they hand out for soda. I'm a fan of Rioja, and even though I've chosen fish for the main course, I will stick to it and face the judgment rather than switch to one of the whites. There is nothing fancy about the appetizer, no exquisite amuse-bouche here, but the breadsticks and cheese do an honest job of accompanying my rich fruity Rioja, even if it would be better suited to something like jamon. The white cloth is served and I'm ready for dining. For the starter, I go with a marinated roasted chicken on a hummus base, accompanied by cherry tomatoes, marinated onions, and a slice of boiled corn on the cob. On the side, there are a couple of bread buns and a tiny bottle of olive oil. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure what role it plays here, maybe for dramatic effect. It looks good, if a bit simple. I recently flew Turkish Airlines business class with the same Do & Co catering, and somehow their starters were a bit more sophisticated. We also get a pair of these funny red and white salt and pepper shakers with a Take Me Home tag. Clever move. This could end up in your kitchen counter long after your flight, quietly reminding you of Iberia every time you season your eggs. The chicken turns out to be good and juicy, not too dry as airline meats often are, and the garnishes blend nicely into the flavors. Solid, honest, and reliable, though I keep waiting for a little Spanish flair to pop up, maybe a tiny flamenco dancer on the side. For the main course, I go with the salmon, which somehow follows a somewhat simplistic, almost Nordic style of plating. Nothing is wrong with it, but I'm a little puzzled. Do & Co usually delivers a bit more flair. Here, it's grilled salmon served with passion fruit sauce, celery mashed potatoes, and grilled vegetables. The salmon looks generous and perfectly cooked, juicy, not overdone, not too fatty. The vegetables, however, are a bit on the dry side, which makes me wonder if they had a brief layover in the desert before landing on my plate. All in all, Iberia, with the help of Do & Co, delivers a very solid meal. Both the chicken and salmon hit the mark. I might have hoped for a bit more variety or extra sides, maybe I just had too high expectations, but the quality is undeniably excellent. Finally, for dessert, I pick a slice of passion fruit mousse with sponge cake, accompanied by a cup of tea. I skip the coffee. Spain may be famous for many things, but coffee isn't really one of them, so the tea feels like the safer bet. After the meal, I still get a bottle of water and a small chocolate. Salán de Cabras in its iconic blue bottle, and Valor chocolate, a classic Spanish treat with over 140 years of history. Between the meal, dessert, tea, water, and chocolate, I'm happily fed, hydrated, and ready to settle in for a movie or a nap, since it's already evening in Europe, or maybe both, why not? Meanwhile, the cabin lights dim and the crew closes the window shades, giving a subtle hint. It's time to switch to European time, nap first, movie later. However, no one seems to be offering to help setting up the bed, which isn't a big deal. I can manage the mattress myself, but it always feels nice when the crew extends the offer. Before going to bed, I take a quick bathroom check. Nothing extraordinary here, though the vanity's close-up mirror is interesting. I'm not quite sure what the intended use is. Would anyone really shave, do their makeup, or tweeze eyebrows mid-flight? Otherwise, the bathroom is quite plain, which in a way mirrors the overall style of the cabin. Functional, neat, but not exactly luxurious. On my way back, I grab a banana and a pack of salted caramel popcorn, which turns out to be surprisingly addictive, so much that I make few more trips to the snacking station during the night. Now I am all ready to go to sleep, and now it's time to close the sliding door to get full privacy, or as much as one can possibly get, in my small suite. This is a very cool feature and probably the only element where Iberia cabin delivers on par with what would be considered best in class for business cabins these days. Morning arrives with the familiar noise of crew moving around and the smell of bakery wafting through the cabin. It's still too early for me to go all in on the omelette, so I opt for the pancakes instead. They come with a generous serving, accompanied by pineapple puree and a raspberry sauce on the side. The small croissant looks less convincing, while the fruit plate actually looks fresh and good. I stick again to a safer bet of tea and a glass of orange juice, which was advertised as freshly squeezed, but well, let's say I remained slightly skeptical. Another half hour and we are starting the descent. It's still the very early morning hours, pitch black outside, not much to see, but a good time to conclude my flight. Iberia sits somewhere in the middle of the airline hierarchy, above cheaper carriers like Air Europa or LOT, but below the new generation of luxury airlines like Emirates and Singapore. Its real competitors are more like Delta, Lufthansa and Air France. Like a few of its peers, Iberia clearly realized in recent years that competing on price alone would get them nowhere, so they invested heavily in upgrading the fleet, aiming to push themselves upmarket. My experience suggests they are halfway there. The planes are new and the hard product is solid, but somehow they have chosen the most basic version of the cabin. It's like buying a Mercedes in the base trim. Yes, it's a Mercedes, but some details make it feel a bit like Volkswagen. The cabin design is plain, and the seat materials and finishes lean simple, if not slightly cheap. Food and drinks are very good, even if the meals felt a little simple, but perhaps that's just my high expectations for Dough & Co. catering. Overall attention to detail, from amenities to service, remains average, and despite Iberia marketing claims, there is somehow very little Spanish touch in anything that they offer. At some point of time, I thought I'm going to hear a Guten Tag when passing crew in the galley. Iberia will get you safely and comfortably from point A to point B, but it fails to impress or truly feel premium. Given that the ticket price for my flight was north of €3,000 one way and plenty of competition today, I'm hesitant to choose them again unless they can improve. I will give this flight a solid 3 out of 5. There is definitely room to grow.